They say the lighthouse whispers secrets I just didn't know they were my own. The city roars, a concrete ocean where I try to drown the ghosts, the insistent clatter of the cafe, the murmur of 1,000 conversations, a symphony of distraction. But even here, surrounded by the living, I see the dead. Steel and glass canyons rise, mocking monuments to ambition, to progress. To my failure dot my hands. Once confident tracing blueprints, now sketch only variations of that desolate sentinel. The lighthouse. It calls to me across the miles, a siren song of stone and sea air. Each line I draw is a confession, a silent plea. For absolution. I remember the sharp sting of rain on my face, the relentless wind tearing at my coat, the taste of salt heavy on the air, a primal, unforgiving flavor, the scent of decay of brine clinging to the stones like a shroud, that single, defiant flicker, a brief spark in the encroaching darkness. It felt like recognition. He means well, Mark, a sunbeam in my perpetually overcast sky. He brings me lukewarm coffee and forced smiles, his eyes filled with a concern I can't bear to meet. He talks about the competition, his voice enthusiastic, oblivious to the shadows that dance behind my eyes. A chance to rebuild, he says, a fresh start. He doesn't understand. Some foundations are too cracked to bear any weight. Flashbacks flicker like faulty film. The collapse, the screams, the accusatory stares, the twisted metal, a mangled mockery of my design, a face pale and lifeless, framed by falling debris. The engagement ring, heavy on my finger then, now a phantom weight I still feel. The lighthouse, it's a crumbling edifice of neglect, a skeleton picked clean by the relentless elements, yet in its decay I see a perverse beauty, a raw, unyielding strength, a story etched in every crack, every weathered stone. It understands loss, this lonely tower. It has witnessed the fury of the sea, the slow, grinding erosion of time. It knows what it is to stand firm in the face of oblivion. The competition, brief, mocks me. Restore a historical landmark. Breathe new life into a forgotten place. Irony drips from every word. How can I restore anything when I've already destroyed so much? How can I breathe life into something when I feel like a walking tomb? But the lighthouse, it's different. It's not about building something new, but about mending something broken. About understanding the forces that shaped it, the stories it holds. About facing the darkness that surrounds it, and somehow finding a way to let the light shine through. The train rumbles along the coast, each mile a step further into the past. The city shrinks behind me, a distant, fading memory. The air grows colder, the sky heavier, the sea stretches out, vast and unforgiving. I can almost taste the salt on my tongue. The town is a cluster of weathered houses clinging to the edge of the land, their faces turned away from the sea, as if in silent disapproval. The locals eye me with suspicion, their whispers following me like the gulls overhead. They know nothing of me, but they know the lighthouse, they know its secrets, and they don't trust outsiders. He emerges from the mist, a figure sculpted by wind and time, the keeper. His eyes, the color of the stormy sea, pierce through me, seeing more than I want him to see. He is as much a part of the landscape as the rocks and the gnarled trees, a guardian, a sentinel, a prisoner of this isolated place. The blueprints are brittle, yellowed with age, filled with cryptic notations and faded ink. They reveal hidden chambers, secret passages, spaces that do not exist on any official record, whispers of forgotten purposes, of lives lived and lost within these stone walls, mysteries buried beneath layers of paint and plaster, of dust and silence. He warns me to leave it alone, to let the past remain buried. His voice is a low growl, a rumble of distant thunder. There are things best left undisturbed, he says. Some doors should never be opened. Some secrets are too dangerous to unearth, but the past is a relentless tide. It pulls at me, dragging me back to the shore I desperately try to escape. The lighthouse is more than just a building. It's a mirror, reflecting my own fractured soul, and I can't resist the urge to look deeper, to confront the darkness within. The work soothes me. The rough texture of the stone beneath my hands, the methodical process of scraping away layers of decay, the slow, painstaking effort to rebuild what has been lost. Each brick laid is a tiny act of defiance, a silent promise to myself, and then I find it, hidden behind a false wall, tucked away in a forgotten alcove, a music box, intricately carved, inlaid with mother of youthful, a relic of a bygone era. As the delicate melody fills the air, a wave of unexpected calm washes over me, a sense of peace I haven't felt in years. For a moment, the ghosts recede, the guilt softens, the pain subsides. The lighthouse seems to breathe, to awaken from its long slumber. The locals, drawn by the music, watch me with cautious curiosity, their faces softening. Even Mark calls, his voice filled with hesitant hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, I can find a way back. But the peace is fleeting, a fragile bubble about to burst. The journal, found tucked away in the keeper's cottage, its pages filled with a story that shatters everything I thought I knew. A forbidden love, a mysterious disappearance, a secret buried for generations. A faded photograph falls from its pages. A woman standing near the lighthouse, her face etched with a wistful smile. my grandmother, and beside her, a young boy, his eyes filled with a knowing that chills me to the bone. The keeper, the music box, it was a gift, a token of love from my grandmother to his father. The lighthouse whispers secrets, and the deadliest one is the truth of what happened to her. The blueprints were always there, a silent chorus humming beneath the surface of my life. Then, a surge, a flash, and the lighthouse called to me, or perhaps it simply echoed the frantic whispers already swirling within. Now, the city churned. Around me, a caffeinated heartbeat pushing against the glass walls of this trendy cafe. Sunlight fractured through the window, painting ephemeral patterns on my sketchpad. Lines, angles, calculations, a desperate attempt to impose order on the chaos within. Lighthouses. I sketched them obsessively, each rendering a phantom limb of a past I couldn't seem to amputate. Each line, a memory, a fractured beam of what was and what could have been. My hand moved, sketching a classical corbel, a design element from the concert hall, the same hall that came crashing down, taking more than just bricks and mortar with it. Faces flashed before my eyes, the hopeful musicians, the expectant audience, and then dust, just dust and screams. The weight of it pressed down, a physical ache in my chest that no amount of caffeine could ever soothe. I could hear the foreman's last words, his desperate plea echoing in my mind. "Are you sure about this, Anna?" But I didn't listen. I wasn't sure. I am never sure. The engagement ring, cold and accusing in its velvet box, felt heavier than any tombstone. Liam's face, etched with disappointment, mirrored my own self-loathing. I don't understand how you could make such a mistake," he said, his voice trembling. The words hung in the air, sharper than shattered glass, severing the fragile threads that had bound us together. Mistakes, they were the architecture of my undoing, the foundations of my regret. So I ran away from the wreckage, from the recriminations, from the ghosts that haunted every corner of my meticulously designed life. Mark, bless his oblivious heart, pulled up a chair, his smile radiating a warmth I didn't deserve. He was sunshine, where I was shadow, a relentless optimist in my perpetual twilight. "Hey, what you working on?" he asked, peering over my shoulder. He saw lighthouses, I saw tombstones, just doodling, I mumbled, shielding the sketchpad with my hand. He launched into a story about his latest coding triumph, a breakthrough in some obscure algorithm that sounded vaguely like alien communication. Mark was a genius in his own right, but his brilliance was untainted by tragedy, unburdened by the crushing weight of responsibility. I envied him that innocence, that ability to navigate the world without constantly looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next disaster to strike. He's a good man. I probably don't deserve him as a friend either. He paused, noticing my lack of enthusiasm. "Hey, you okay? You seem distant. That was putting it mildly. I was adrift, lost in a fog of guilt and self-reproach. Could I possibly explain to him the darkness that clung to me, the constant fear that I would inevitably destroy everything I touched? I couldn't, so I offered a weak smile and mumbled something about being tired. Then he brightened, snapping his fingers. "Hey, did you hear about that architecture competition? The one focusing on historical landmark restoration?" My head snapped up. An architecture competition. My profession, my passion. Something flickered within the gloom, a spark of interest, a hesitant reaching for something solid. They're looking for innovative designs that respect the original structure while bringing these places back to life, Mark continued, oblivious to the sudden tension in my shoulders. "I saw something about it online. I thought of you immediately. Lighthouses, historical landmarks." The connection struck me with a jolt. Could it be possible? Could I channel this destructive energy into something constructive? Could I find redemption in the very thing that had brought me so much pain? He pulled out his phone, scrolling through articles. "Here it is. Preserving our past. An architectural challenge, blah blah blah. Check this out. Special consideration will be given to projects involving maritime structures and navigational aids." My breath caught in my throat. Maritime structures, navigational aids, lighthouses, the lighthouse on the coast, the one that had haunted my dreams, the one that had somehow, inexplicably, called to me. It was more than just a coincidence. It was a sign, a lifeline thrown into the turbulent sea of my despair. Mark, still chattering excitedly, was oblivious to the storm brewing within me. He saw an opportunity. I saw a chance at atonement, a desperate attempt to silence the voices in my head. "You should totally enter, Anna. You'd be amazing. You could win." Win. The word echoed in my mind, hollow and meaningless. Winning was never the point. The point was surviving. The point was finding a way to live with the ghosts that haunted me. I looked down at the sketches, at the meticulously rendered lines of those solitary towers, standing defiant against the crashing waves. They were beacons of hope, symbols of resilience, guides through the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, they could guide me to... I'll think about it, Mark, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But even as I spoke the words, I knew the decision had already been made. I had to go back. I had to face the lighthouse, to confront the secrets it held, to unravel the mysteries that had drawn me in. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly imagine, was that the lighthouse wasn't just waiting for me. It was waiting for my past, and my past was about to drag me down with it. The salt-laced wind whipped around me, a tangible reminder of the distance I had traveled, not just in miles, but in years. The city's sterile glass and steel were a lifetime away, replaced by the weathered clapboard of this forgotten coastal town, a place where time moved like the tide, relentless and unforgiving. They watched me, the townsfolk, their eyes narrowed, faces etched with a suspicion as deep as the ocean floor. My presence stirred something in them, something unspoken, a collective memory best left undisturbed. Their whispers followed me like shadows, clinging to the hems of my coat. I could feel their unease, a prickling on the back of my neck that had nothing to do with the cold. The lighthouse loomed, a silent sentinel against the gray horizon. It was more than just stone and mortar. It was a keeper of secrets, a silent witness to generations of lives lived and lost on this unforgiving coast. The keeper, they called him, an old man, weathered and worn like the rocks he lived amongst, his eyes holding the infinite wisdom and the bottomless sorrow of the sea. He was the only one left, the only one who dared to live in the lighthouse's shadow. He greeted me with a knowing glance, a look that seemed to penetrate the carefully constructed walls I had built around myself. He didn't offer a welcome, only a warning. "Some things are best left buried," he rasped, his voice a dry whisper carried on the wind. He spoke of the past as a dangerous beast, capable of devouring the present. But the past was already devouring me, piece by piece. I needed to understand. I needed to unravel the threads that had drawn me here, to this lonely place, to this silent tower. The blueprints I found were brittle and yellowed, smelling of salt and time. They spoke of chambers not found on any official record, hidden spaces within the lighthouse's core, secrets woven into its very structure. The lines were faded, but the intent was clear. Someone had deliberately concealed these rooms, erased them from history, as if they never existed. What secrets were they hiding? What darkness lay buried within those walls? The keeper found me poring over the maps, his silhouette framed against the dying light. His shadow stretched long and menacing, like a harbinger of doom. "Turn back, girl," he pleaded, his voice cracking with age and fear. "This place, it takes things, it doesn't give them back." His words were a chilling prophecy, a glimpse into a history shrouded in darkness. He spoke of storms, of disappearances, of whispers carried on the wind that drove men mad. He spoke of the lighthouse as a hungry thing, a devourer of souls. I dismissed his warnings as the ramblings of an old man, clinging to superstition in a world that had long forgotten it. But his eyes held a truth I couldn't ignore, a pain that resonated deep within my own fractured soul. The blueprints whispered of a spiral staircase, concealed behind a false wall in the main chamber, a staircase leading down into the heart of the earth, into the unknown. I found it easily enough, the mechanism rusted and stiff with age, but yielding with a final groaning protest. The air grew cold as I descended, the smell of damp stone and decay filling my lungs. The darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Each step echoed in the silence, a drumbeat of anticipation and dread. What awaited me in the depths of the lighthouse? What secrets lay hidden in those forgotten chambers? The keeper's warnings echoed in my mind, a chorus of doubt and fear. But I couldn't turn back. I had come too far. The lighthouse had called to me, promising answers, promising a resolution to the turmoil that raged within me. I was a moth drawn to a flame, knowing it could burn me, but unable to resist the allure of its light. The chamber was small and circular, the walls lined with shelves filled with forgotten objects, books with crumbling spines, nautical instruments covered in verdigris, faded photographs of faces I didn't recognize. A history of the lighthouse, etched in dust and silence. And then I saw it. A music box, crafted from dark wood, inlaid with mother-of pearl. It sat on a pedestal, bathed in a single ray of moonlight that filtered through a crack in the wall. It seemed to pulse with a faint ethereal light, beckoning me closer. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and lifted the lid. A melody filled the chamber, haunting and melancholic, a tune that resonated with a deep, primal part of my being. It was a song of loss and longing, of love and despair, a song that seemed to know my own story, my own pain. As the music played, a wave of emotions washed over me, a torrent of grief and regret that threatened to drown me. I saw flashes of the past, fragments of memories that had been buried deep within my subconscious. My failed project, the accident, the broken engagement, they all came rushing back, amplified by the music's haunting melody. But there was something else, something buried even deeper. A whisper of a forgotten connection to this place, to this lighthouse. A connection that transcended time and space. The music box seemed to unlock something within me, a hidden chamber. In my own heart, a sense of peace, however fleeting, settled over me. I wasn't running anymore. I was home. But even as I embraced the light, I knew that the darkness was still lurking, waiting for its moment to strike. The keeper's words hung heavy in the air. "This place, it takes things, it doesn't give them back." What had the lighthouse taken from my family? What secrets were buried beneath the waves? The music box had opened a door, but I knew, with a chilling certainty, that what lay on the other side was far more dangerous than I could ever imagine. The melody faded, leaving me alone in the darkness, with only the echo of the keeper's warning and the haunting question of what price I would ultimately pay for seeking the truth. The lighthouse held its secrets close, and I knew, with growing dread, that it wasn't ready to relinquish them without a fight, and something told me that fight would soon be upon me. The salt spray stung her face, a familiar kiss now, no longer a threat, but a baptism, brick by brick, stone by stone. The lighthouse surrendered its secrets, not with malice, but with a wary sigh. Each swing of the hammer, each scrape of the trowel, felt like an act of penance, not just for the crumbling structure, but for something broken within her. The city, with its sharp edges and judging eyes, faded into a distant nightmare. Here, on this precipice of land and sea, the only judgment came from the relentless wind and the cries of gulls, and somehow, they offered absolution. Days bled into weeks. The townsfolk, initially cold, their faces etched with suspicion, began to thaw. A nod here, a wave there, a shared cup of coffee at the local diner. Their stories, once whispered behind cupped hands, now unfolded like maps, revealing the contours of a shared history, a history intertwined with the lighthouse, with shipwrecks and whispered legends, with lives both saved and lost. They saw her not as an outsider, an intruder dredging up forgotten sorrows, but as a force, a necessary storm, clearing the debris of the past, making way for a new dawn. The blueprints, her constant companions, hinted at more than met the eye: hidden chambers, concealed passages, secrets buried deep within the lighthouse's core, places that defied logic, spaces that whispered of forgotten purposes. Driven by an instinct she couldn't explain, an almost primal need to unearth what lay hidden, Anna followed the cryptic clues embedded in the aged parchment. One evening, as the sun bled crimson across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and sorrow, she found it, a section of wall, seamlessly integrated into the tower's curve, yielded to her touch. A hidden chamber, small and circular, bathed in the ethereal glow of the setting sun. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminating a space frozen in time. A single object sat upon a weathered table, a music box crafted from dark wood, inlaid with mother of pearl. It was a thing of exquisite beauty, a relic from a bygone era. Hesitantly, she reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool, smooth surface. A sense of unease washed over her, a premonition of something both wonderful and terrible. This place, this box, it felt intimately familiar, as if a long dormant memory was stirring within her soul. With a deep breath, she opened the lid. A delicate melody filled the chamber, a haunting waltz that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the lighthouse. It was a simple tune, yet it possessed a power that transcended its simplicity. It spoke of love and loss, of hope and despair, of secrets whispered in the dead of night. As the music swirled around her, a wave of emotion crashed over her, washing away the guilt, the pain, the years of self-imposed exile. For the first time, since that day, she felt a sense of peace, a fragile sense of belonging. The lighthouse was not just a structure of stone and mortar. It was a vessel, a container of memories, a conduit to something deeper, something profound. It was a key, perhaps, to unlocking the prison she had built around her own heart. The music faded, leaving a profound silence in its wake. The sun had dipped below the horizon, plunging the chamber into darkness, yet Anna remained, bathed in the afterglow of the melody. Her eyes closed, her heart open. She felt connected, not just to the lighthouse, but to something larger, something ancient, something intrinsically tied to her own past. The thought of Mark surfaced, unbidden. His kind eyes, his unwavering support, his gentle touch. The chasm that had separated them, forged in the crucible of tragedy, seemed to shrink, if only for a moment. Could she possibly bridge that gap? Could she allow herself to be loved again? The lighthouse, it seemed, was not only resurrecting itself, but also resurrecting a flicker of hope within her own desolate soul. The keeper, she realized, had been right. In a way, the past was buried here, but not to be forgotten. It was buried here to be understood, to be embraced, to be healed. And perhaps, just perhaps, she was the one chosen to unearth it. She walked outside to see the lights of town twinkling in the distance, a sign of life, a sign of acceptance. Even the relentless wind seemed to soften, carrying with it the promise of calmer seas, of brighter days. But the darkness lingered too, a shadow lurking just beyond the reach of the lighthouse beam. The music box, she knew, was not just a source of solace. It was a Pandora's box, waiting to be opened. And within it lay not only beauty and hope, but also secrets that could shatter everything she had begun to rebuild. The melody of the music box still echoed in her mind, a reminder that some tunes are best left unsung. The peace I had found, the fragile solace woven into the music box's melody, began to unravel, thread by agonizing thread. It felt like I had finally reached the shore, only to be dragged back into the unforgiving undertow. The lighthouse, which had started to feel like a sanctuary, now loomed over me, a silent sentinel guarding a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to face. Days blurred into a frantic search. The town's archives, dusty and forgotten, became my obsession. I dove into brittle documents, faded maps, and crumbling ledgers, seeking answers that felt both desperately important and terrifyingly close. The names whispered by the wind, the echoes in the stone, began to coalesce into a shape I dreaded. Then, I found it. Hidden within the pages of a mariner's log, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the Historical Society, lay a journal. Its leather cover was worn and cracked, the ink faded with age, but the words screamed from the page. The handwriting was elegant, almost theatrical, hinting at a passionate, artistic soul. It belonged to the lighthouse keeper, but not the weathered old man I knew. It belonged to his father. And the entries, they spoke of a love forbidden, a love that bloomed under the watchful eye of the very beacon I now stood beneath. He wrote of her with a fervor that burned through the decades, a love that consumed him, defied convention, and defied the fabric of his life. He called her his sea siren, his guiding star, the woman who painted colors into his otherwise monochrome world. And her name was Eleanor, my grandmother. The journal painted a vivid picture of their secret rendezvous, stolen moments, under the cloak of darkness, whispers carried away by the wind, promises etched in the sand only to be washed away by the relentless tide. He wrote of their dreams, their shared hopes for a future that could never be. He wrote of the impossible choice they faced. The forbidden nature of their love hung heavy in the air. A lighthouse keeper, bound to his duty, his name, his family, and a woman bound to a life elsewhere, a life already chosen for her. As I turned the fragile pages, I found a faded photograph tucked within. It was creased and yellowed, its edges frayed, but the image it held struck me like a physical blow. It showed a young boy, standing near the base of the lighthouse, his face shadowed but his eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and sadness. Beside him, my grandmother, younger, radiant, her smile tinged with a bittersweet melancholy. She was boarding a small boat, a vessel that looked woefully inadequate against the vast, unforgiving ocean. I recognized the boat. It was the Sea Serpent, a fishing vessel that had disappeared without a trace decades ago, swallowed by the sea during a sudden, violent squall. No wreckage, no survivors, just a ghost story whispered by the salty air. My hands trembled as I read the caption scrawled beneath the photograph in the keeper's elegant script. The day she sailed away. The day my world turned to gray. The pieces slammed into place with the force of a rogue wave. The music box. It wasn't just a trinket. It was a love token, a gift from my grandmother to the lighthouse keeper, a symbol of their stolen moments and unspoken promises. The song it played, a haunting melody I had dismissed as a simple tune, was their song, the song of a love that could never be. The truth crashed over me, cold and unforgiving. My grandmother didn't just disappear. She sailed away on a doomed vessel, a vessel that likely never stood a chance against the fury of the sea. And the lighthouse keeper's son, the man I had been talking to, the man I was starting to trust, he was there. He saw her go. He saw my grandmother board that boat. Weight of the past settled upon me, crushing me beneath its immense burden. The lighthouse, once a beacon of hope, transformed into a monument of grief, loss, and unspoken secrets. I had come here seeking solace, seeking a way to rebuild my life. Instead, I had unearthed a tragedy that threatened to bury me alive. I closed the journal, the silence of the room amplified by the storm raging within my soul. The truth was out there, beckoning me, demanding to be acknowledged. But with it came the realization that some secrets are best left buried, that some wounds never truly heal. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront the keeper. I had to ask him about that day, about his father, about my grandmother. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. But as I stood there, staring out at the churning sea, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to open a Pandora's box, unleashing a torrent of darkness that would consume everything in its path. And I wondered, with a growing sense of dread, if I was strong enough to face the secrets that lay hidden within the heart of the lighthouse, secrets that had been buried for far too long, secrets that perhaps were better left undisturbed. Was I prepared to learn what really happened on that fateful day, the day my grandmother vanished forever? The music box lay silent on the table, a beautiful cage now holding a truth too terrible to bear, a melody forever stained with salt and regret. It wasn't just a story, it was my story, rewritten in the ink of a father's guilt and a son's desperate loyalty. The air in the keeper's cottage thickened with the unspoken, a suffocating shroud woven from decades of deception. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within me, each crashing wave a fresh accusation. I saw her face then, my grandmother, not as the faded photograph I clutched in my hand, but vibrant, laughing, trusting, and then gone, swallowed whole by the sea and the shadows it concealed. He called it an accident, a storm rising faster than predicted, a faulty engine, a moment of panic on the waves. But accidents, I knew too well, leave scars that never truly fade, and this This was a wound that had festered for generations, poisoning the well of my family's history. He saw the disbelief etched on my face, the dawning horror. The keeper, his weathered face a roadmap of unspoken sorrows, offered no excuses, only a quiet confession, a plea for understanding that felt like a betrayal in itself. He spoke of his father, a good man, he insisted, a man consumed by remorse, a man who in his final days was haunted by the image of that sinking boat, by the ghost of a woman he could not save. His father hadn't meant to. That much, at least, I believed. Perhaps it was a reckless decision, a tragic miscalculation born of what love, infatuation, or simply the arrogance of a man who thought he could control the same sea that ultimately claimed him too. The sea always takes what it's owed, and the keeper, he'd witnessed it all, a child clinging to the edge of a nightmare he couldn't comprehend. He'd carried the weight of his father's secret, a burden that had molded him into the solitary figure he was today. He thought he was protecting his father's memory, safeguarding the legacy of a man he loved. He thought he was protecting me, shielding me from the ugly truth of my family's past. But secrets I was learning were like the sea itself. They eroded over time, carving deeper and deeper into the soul, until only hollowed-out shells remained. They built dams to try and hold them back, but eventually the pressure is too great, and the truth comes flooding, drowning everything in its path. I looked around the cottage, at the worn furniture, the faded photographs, the collection of sea-worn trinkets he'd gathered over the years. It was a life built on a foundation of lies, a monument to a silence that had echoed through the years, and I, unwittingly, had come here to dismantle it all. The lighthouse loomed outside, its unblinking eye cutting through the storm. A beacon of hope, they called it. But what hope could there be in a place steeped in so much pain, so much deceit? It felt less like a guide and more like a constant, unwavering reminder of what was hidden in the dark. I understood his motives, perhaps in a cold, detached way. I, too, knew what it meant to carry a burden of guilt, to try and bury the past beneath layers of denial. But his secret had stolen something precious from me, something irreplaceable, the chance to know my grandmother, to understand her story, to grieve her loss with the truth in my heart. Now, that chance was gone, replaced by a gnawing emptiness, a sense of profound betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. It wasn't just the death itself, it was the decades of silence, the lies whispered and unspoken, the weight of a secret that had shaped the lives of everyone involved. He watched me, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. He knew he had shattered something within me, something that might never be whole again. He'd offered me the truth, but it was a poisoned chalice, a gift that came at too high a price. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand answers that would never come, but the words caught in my throat, choked by the weight of my own grief and confusion. What right did I have to judge him, when I, too, had run from my past, hidden from the consequences of my own actions? The storm raged on, mirroring the chaos. In my heart, the lighthouse beams swept across the turbulent sea, a fleeting glimpse of clarity in the surrounding darkness. But the light offered no solace, no easy answers. It simply illuminated the path ahead, a path fraught with pain, uncertainty, and the daunting task of piecing together the shattered fragments of my family's history. I turned and walked out of the cottage, leaving the keeper alone with his secrets. The wind tore at my hair, the rain lashed against my face, and the salty air filled my lungs. I stood on the edge of the cliff, gazing out at the churning sea, and felt the weight of generations pressing down on me. The lighthouse stood behind me, a silent sentinel watching over the storm-tossed waves. I knew, somehow, that I couldn't simply walk away from this place, from this history. I had come here seeking healing, seeking answers, and I had found something far more complicated, far more painful than I could have ever imagined. But the truth, however brutal, had set something in motion. A reckoning, perhaps, was simply a slow, agonizing process of coming to terms with the past. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I couldn't keep running. I had to face the darkness, to confront the secrets that had haunted my family for so long. Lighthouse beams swept past again, illuminating the treacherous rocks below, and in that fleeting moment, I saw not just danger, but also a strange kind of beauty. A raw, untamed power that mirrored the strength I would need to navigate the turbulent waters ahead. How could I forgive a mistake that took away so much? How could I reconcile the man I saw before me with a knowledge of his father's actions? And how could I possibly begin to heal the wounds of a past that refused to stay buried? The waves crashed against the shore, each one a question mark etched in the sand. And as I stood there, alone in the storm, I knew that the hardest part was yet to come, learning to live with a truth that threatened to drown me. But somewhere, deep down, a flicker of hope remained, a hope that, somehow, amidst the wreckage of the past, I could find a way to build a future. But what future could there be? Knowing my grandmother's final moments were filled with fear, not peace, and knowing that the man who held the key to that truth had chosen silence for so long. And how could I ever truly trust the light again, knowing the shadows it concealed ran so deep? The storm was a mirror, reflecting a past I desperately tried to outrun. The waves clawed at the shore, each crash a whisper of what was lost, what was hidden. The lighthouse groaned under the assault, its beams stuttering, faltering like a heartbeat, about to give way. It was more than just a building failing. It was history collapsing, secrets threatening to drag everything down with them. The air was thick with salt and the scent of rain, each drop a cold kiss on my skin. I could taste the grief, acrid and bitter, clinging to the back of my throat. My grandmother's story wasn't just ink on paper anymore. It was etched into the very stones around me, into the swirling, angry sky. The light, always the light, was dying, threatening to leave the ships adrift, lost in the tempestuous dark. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I couldn't let it. The blueprints, once cold lines on paper, were now a map in my mind. The hidden chambers, the forgotten passages, I navigated them like veins in my own body, each turn echoing with the ghosts of generations past. The wind howled a mournful song, a lament for what had been, for what could never be. But amidst the chaos, there was a flicker of something else, a stubborn ember of hope. I climbed, driven by a force I couldn't fully understand, through the spiraling staircase, each step a defiance against the storm, against the past itself. The metal groaned under my touch, the cold seeping into my fingers, mirroring the chill in my heart. Doubts whispered in my ear, insidious voices urging me to turn back, to abandon the light to its fate. But I pressed on, drawn by a sense of duty, a need to finally make amends, not just for myself, but for everyone touched by this cursed place. The lamp room was a maelstrom of sparks and shadows, the air crackling with raw energy. The mechanism sputtered, its gears grinding against each other in a desperate struggle. The light pulsed erratically, casting dancing, distorted shapes against the storm-lashed windows. I could feel the weight of the ocean pressing in, the relentless power of nature threatening to swallow us whole. My hands, clumsy at first, soon found their rhythm. The architectural drawings, ingrained in my memory from countless hours of study, guided me. I understood the delicate balance of power within. The machine, the intricate dance of gears and lenses that created the guiding light. Each adjustment was a prayer, a plea to the past, a promise to the future. With each turn of a wrench, each tightening of a bolt, the light grew stronger, steadier. The sputtering softened, the erratic pulses evening out into a measured, rhythmic beat. The storm raged on, but now there was a defiant beacon pushing back against the darkness, a single point of hope in the swirling chaos. I looked out at the churning sea, and for a moment, I saw her, my grandmother. Not as a ghost or a faded photograph, but as a woman, strong and vibrant, standing defiant against the wind. I saw the love she held, the secrets she carried, the sacrifices she made, and in that moment I understood. The lighthouse wasn't just a structure of stone and glass. It was a vessel for stories, a repository of memories, both light and dark. The keeper's secret, the truth he so desperately tried to bury, would remain hidden, not because I condoned it, but because some burdens are too heavy to be borne by the world. Some truths are best left undisturbed, allowed to rest in the shadows where they can no longer cause harm. But the silence would not be complete. I would build a memorial, not a grand monument, but a simple stone etched with her name, a testament to her life, her love, her sacrifice. A place where the wind could whisper her story and the waves could sing her song. A place where the truth could breathe without shattering the delicate peace that had finally settled over the island. The lighthouse beam cut through the storm, a bright, unwavering sword against the night. It was a promise, a beacon for lost souls, a symbol of hope in the face of despair. And as I watched it shine, I knew I had found my purpose, not in running away from the past, but in embracing it, in acknowledging its pain, and in finding the strengths to move forward. The secrets remained, locked away in the heart of the island, in the depths of the ocean. But the light guided me home, not just to a place, but to myself. But what if the storm hasn't truly passed? What if the secrets, though buried, are merely dormant, waiting for the next tempest to unleash them once more?